Thank you, Joe. Welcome to the Sunday Politics here in the glorious west of England. It's a beautiful day outside. I'm joined again by four election candidates. They are the Conservative Simon Hoare, Labour's Thangam Debonair, Gideon Amos for the Lib Dems and UKIP's Ernie Warrender. Welcome to you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
We meet with our hearts broken for those victims of the Manchester attack. Of course, in our horror and disgust and anger, we're turning to the politicians to see how they plan to keep us safe in this dangerous world that we live in. The answer for Labour's Diane Abbott this morning is a big increase in public spending.
The reason that we've had to promise 10,000 extra police officers is that on Theresa May's watch, there are 20,000 police officers down. So the cost of the entire package, which is 10,000 extra police officers, 3,000 firefighters, 3,000 prison officers, 1,000 security people and 500 border guards, will be 417 million.
Diane Abbott on this morning's Marsh show. Well, Simon Hoare, why have the Conservatives cut 20,000 police officers?
Well, we haven't. And what we've done is...
You have?
No, we haven't. We set the budgets at the Home Office, and then commissioners and chief constables decide where the resources are deployed.
You know, if you don't give them the money, they've got to... What else could they cut other than police officers?
What we have done, because the nature of policing, as we know, is changing. The nature of terrorism is changing, as we saw at the tragic event in Manchester. Cyber attacks and the like means that we have to change the way that we deliver our security and policing services. So that is why the government, since 2010, has been putting more money into organisations like MI5, like GCHQ, as a way of keeping us safe. And let's just remind ourselves, as I think this is the important thing, because this is an issue, I think, fundamentally about trust. We have a Shadow Chancellor who has said that he would disband MI5 and would disarm the police. That is Labour's vision. You cannot trust the Labour Party when it comes to the security of our country.
Those are words. This is actions. And you've cut budgets, which has forced police authorities to reduce the number of full-time officers. For instance, in Avon and Somerset, it's 602 down since 2010.
Crime has been falling, if you look at the statistics across the country, which is good news. What we now have to ensure, and I think people really know in their heart of hearts, that when you look at the Conservative Party, we are the only party that can be really trusted on delivering a secure country.
Gideon Amos,
we will do all that we can.
Our time is short. Gideon Amos, do you agree with that? You have to trust the Tories to keep you safe.
I mean, Deputy Assistant Commissioner Brian Paddick, for us, the Liberal Democrats, has been very clear we need to put an extra £300 million into policing. We would need to release this 1% cap on police pay, which is, of course, so damaging to morale. But actually, it goes further than that. Conservatives are also cutting armed services. I mean, 200 Royal Marines posts are going. The Royal Marines camp in Taunton Deane is being closed. You know, this is not the direction. We would reverse that, and this is not the direction we should be going in.
OK, but your policy is to roll back surveillance and to scrap the PREVENT programme. Is that wise?
As the PREVENT programme has been shown to be not working. What we need is a programme that works and is successful. As Brian Paddick's also pointed out, what we need in terms of surveillance is targeting people better to make sure we're actually achieving the objective.
You're against fighting against encryption on the WhatsApp and so on.
What we're saying is that having a blanket surveillance of everything and everyone is not the most successful way to identify terrorists.
6 of the 9 Lib Dem MPs, only 6 bothered to vote on the Investigatory Powers Bill that brought together all of the powers under one act with judicial oversight in order to try to keep our country safe.
To answer the question,
6 Lib Dem MPs turned up and voted.
To answer the question,
6 Lib Dems turned up and voted against it.
To answer the question, the reason is, just as I was saying, that blanket surveillance, where you invest huge resources... It is under the Investigatory Powers Act.
I think we won't go down that line. Thangam Debonair, are Jeremy Corbyn and Diane Abbott the right combination to keep us safe?
Well, as you just saw, Diane Abbott said that we would reverse the cuts to police funding and we would have 10,000 extra police officers at a cost of £0.3 billion. We know how much it's going to cost, unlike the Tory manifesto. We have actually worked out how much all of our new spending commitments would cost, and we know where we're going to get the money from. We would also invest in the border forces, which, again, the Tory government has cut. I think it's extraordinary that Theresa May, who's been Home Secretary before she was Prime Minister, is trying to act as though nothing everything's gone wrong on her watch.
Do you agree with Jeremy Corbyn that part of this terror problem we have in this country is our own fault? The fault of foreign policy?
That's not actually what he said. He said very, very clearly that you could not pin down terrorism. The causes of terrorism are not foreign policy alone, but he said that context is important. It's one important factor.
And do you agree with him?
And I agree that context,
wars...
as Boris Johnson has also said, context is incredibly important. I used to work with violent men before I became a politician, and although the responsibility was always on them if they hurt their partners or their children, context did play a part in that. We couldn't solve the problem just by working
part
individually.
Of this on ourselves.
No, that's not what Jeremy said either,
and
it's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that it's important for us to consider the context. So, for instance, a Labour government would not be selling arms to despotic regimes or regimes where there are concerns about international human rights. Now, at the moment under the Tory government is saying yes to arms exports to 28 countries that their own Foreign and Commonwealth Office said are questionable. Are being questionable. They're part of the context.
We're being killed by people within our communities.
They're part of the context. If you help arm people who are going to cause human rights violations, you are helping to stoke up fuel and hatred.
Okay.
It's part of the context.
Just briefly, you're the chair of the parliamentary group on refugees.
I am.
Can you understand why some voters may not think that actually having more refugees coming to this country may not be wise?
I know that every time I talk to people about refugees, every time I say to somebody, if this country was at war, if we were in conflict, would you expect our neighbours and our friends and our allies to help us? They say yes. And when I say, if someone's coming and fleeing persecution, torture and terror, do you think we should open our arms and welcome them? They say yes. But they also say that welcome needs to be properly resourced and properly worked out. And as chair of that parliamentary group, I initiated inquiry which did exactly that. We worked out how we need to improve the welcome that we give. So it's fairer to the indigenous communities
the security checks.
Security checks are absolutely important, I agree, and that's why under a Labour government we would increase the amount of border patrols there were.
Ernie Warrender from UKIP. You're also promising more police and more prison officers. How would you pay for it?
Well, basically, to pay for this, to fund it, you've got HS2, this Victorian railway, which the Tories are intent on providing, when I can't even get a phone signal, let alone transfer data in the country. There's a huge chunk of money that we probably actually don't have, but they're going to find it from somewhere. We want to put the foreign aid budget in line with Obama's America and Japan. And to provide
just lift your microphone up so that we can hear you. Sorry, that's the stuff, yeah. Keep talking.
No, that's fine. I often feel victimised. Basically, we've touched on security here. We don't have much in the way of border security. With freedom of movement, people can come and go as they please. This chap flew in.
It's just not true.
This chap flew in from Düsseldorf, I believe. There's very few rules. People don't believe that there are rules, and you say it's not true. And yet everyone sat here subscribed to freedom of movement. They all were Remainers. Theresa May, as Home Secretary, correct me if I'm wrong, was booed off stage at the Police Federation conference in 2012. We do need more police. We do need a more visible presence. But we also need, you know, we did a wonderful thing in the 50s.
Okay, let me bring in Simon on that. I mean, Theresa May was booed by the Police Federation when she said, look, you're scaremongering.
Well, to take Thangam's point, let's put that into context. That was a tough speech which the Prime Minister gave as Home Secretary that said to the Police Federation, which the Police Federation leadership then accepted, that they needed to modernise and change a lot of the ways that they operated as an organisation. That's where some of the booing came from. I don't think that the key message from Theresa May as Home Secretary and Prime Minister would be booed by the police, because I think that they know, quite rightly, that as Home Secretary, she made sure, whether it was sorting out stop and search, whether it was putting in place the Investigatory Powers Act, making sure that our security and police services, and increasingly, as we talk about integration, we need to integrate those two things.
Very sorry, we can't have
equipped.
speeches. Just quick points, please. Thangham, what would you say to that?
Well, I would challenge what you're saying, Simon. I think it's important that we're really clear that there is a context that we take into account, but individual responsibility for terrorism has to be on the terrorist. However, not having enough police makes people feel fearful. People in Bristol and beyond have told me about their anxieties about police cuts, and they want those cuts reversed.
Last word.
Well, I think treat people as you would be treated is one saying that would apply to Theresa May at the Police Federation. If public servants across the country feel they're being treated badly by Conservative ministers, not only in pay but also in the way they're talked about, that's the sort of reaction they're going to get.
OK, thank you. Well, there have been increased security measures at the Tall Ships Festival in Gloucester this weekend, but that hasn't stopped thousands of people enjoying themselves in the sunshine. But what are their thoughts on who should captain the country over the next 5 years? Robin Markwell is there. Ahoy there.
Ahoy there, David. Yes, welcome aboard. We are at the Tall Ships Festival. It is a glorious day for it. 50,000 people expected through the doors today. And we're aboard the Johanna Lucretia. It's a topsail schooner, I'm told, one of 7 tall ships in these docks. If you take a look over the water here, you can see the Matthew as well. It's sailed up from Bristol for the bank holiday weekend. Behind it, the Gloucester Big Wheel. And just over there as well, Jack Sparrow from Pirates of the Caribbean, currently engaged in a sword fight, a real duel going on over there. And this, politically, Gloucester has always been a bit of a duel between Conservatives and Labour. And with the polls narrowing, the undecided voter could be crucial in all this. So where better than the Tall Ships Festival to go looking for the floating voter? Have you worked out who you're going to vote for?
I was Conservative, but now I'm not sure because she's giving away, she's scrapping the free meals for children, for infants, and my son gets a free meal, so yeah, I'm not sure now, swinging a bit towards Labour.
I am a Conservative voter, will be again. I think it's right for business, what we need in the country at the moment, so yeah.
Well, I'm a teacher, so I've experienced how bad it has been for local schools to have their budgets cut, and they're going to cut them again, aren't they? Yeah.
The policies just make more sense than the Tories. I've always been not pro-Tory, well, not pro-Tory at all, but yeah, Labour just makes more sense to me.
Getting the right government.
And getting us out of the EU smoothly and as quickly as possible.
So it's a Brexit vote for you, Samus?
Did I say that? Yes, yes.
I'm a staunch Conservative, and James is staunch Labour.
You get along?
We do.
Yeah.
We're the best of friends.
Yes.
I think the Whigs have got some very good points, actually.
Absolutely. The Whigs have it, sir, but we are supporters, are we not, of good King George III. Long may he reign. Yes, indeed. He's a bit mad, but aren't we all nowadays?
But Walpole will see us through.
Yeah, only in the west of England. Our thanks to Robin Markwell for bringing us that bit of light relief. Let's talk politics again. Thangham, the polls are narrowing, aren't they? Do you think Mr Corbyn can now make it and be in number 10 Downing Street?
I don't want to call that this early. We've got quite a way to go yet. We've still got a week and 4 days, something like that. There's all to play for, though. And I think what I'm finding, what my colleagues are telling me they're finding, is a mixture of things. People are concerned about school cuts. People have told us they're concerned about cuts to the police service. People have told us they're worried about the National Health Service. Now, all of those things have an answer in the Labour manifesto. And I'm guessing that's why people are warming to us. And we're going up in the polls.
Warming to Mr Corbyn as well. And yet you resigned and wouldn't work with him on the front bench because you thought he was incompetent.
Yes, and here we are with a great manifesto, which I'm fully behind. I'm absolutely delighted about it. I think the National Education Service and Ange Rayner's leadership on that has been brilliant. OK,
I did press Karen Smith, your colleague in Bristol, on this last week. Can you look at me and say, I think Jeremy Corbyn would be a good Prime Minister?
I think a Labour Prime Minister is going to be so much better than a Tory Prime Minister.
You can't actually get the words out,
I could say Jeremy Corbyn. There you go.
OK, all right. Thank you very much.
You had your fingers crossed.
Yeah. Well, now you, Simon Hoare, before you point at Thangham, I mean, this idea of putting up Mrs May and ignoring the Conservative brand almost, if you like, that seems to have backfired.
I'm seeing no evidence of that.
Are you looking at
I think the Prime Minister made it very clear that she is the leader of the Conservative Party. She's the Prime Minister of a Conservative government, delivering a Conservative
This is one of the leaflets that are going through the doors.
David,
I mean, you cannot see... You pointed out that the word Conservative is down there.
No, David, what I pointed out was when you opened it, at the bottom there, absolutely next to it, is Theresa May and the word Conservatives with our logo. So I think it's very hard to suggest that people in this country wouldn't know that Theresa May was a Conservative and a Conservative Prime Minister.
Are you worried that she's...
Let me answer the question. Let me answer the question seriously. We are in, as we know, very serious times. We've got the difficult job of delivering Brexit. We know we have I think the country knows that you want a steadfast, reliable, tried and tested leader of the country, and that is Theresa May. It is certainly not It is certainly not Mr. Farron, and it is certainly not Mr. Corbyn, who we know cannot be trusted on security and cannot be trusted on defence and could not be trusted on the economy.
Do you accept that the manifesto that Mrs May put out in her name, she said it was my manifesto,
yes,
she didn't say anything about it being a Conservative, it's a personal document from her, that it offered nothing for you to sell on the doorsteps, did it? Austerity and cuts.
A huge amount.
And social care.
No, when I'm a parent of 3 children. When I talk to other parents about additional money for education, about making sure that children also have a free breakfast when they need it, that is going down very well. I think what we have is a sensible, deliverable programme of government, delivering on the referendum, but actually proving that we can both rub our heads and pat our tummies at the same time. We have a wider domestic agenda of reform, of delivering better public service and a growing economy.
Let's bring in the Lib Dems.
School cuts are on your watch.
We do need strong people in politics, absolutely, but we need strong people who are going to stand up to the school cuts, going to stand up to the watering down of funding for our National Health Service. Look, if we're having Brexit, what we need is members of Parliament going to stand up to keep the free trade we've had for decades, rather than risking this crashing out of Europe with no deal. And that's really worrying employers in the constituency in Taunton Deane. It's really worrying anybody who has a job that's remotely affected by European trade. And those are the kind of strong issues we need MPs to stand up for in Parliament.
Brexit is going to happen?
Look, it clearly depends. If the majority continues to be in the country in favour of Brexit, then we have to. Then we have never seen the deal that kept being talked about. No one has had a chance to even see it, and let alone have a vote on it. In 2 years, we'd like to see that. But more importantly, if we are going out of Europe, we have to protect the best that we have with Europe.
You keep saying if.
So you haven't accepted it? You haven't accepted the will of the people expressed in a referendum?
I believe
you're suggesting a second referendum.
We believe that people, when the deal comes back, a first referendum on the deal with the option to remain should be there.
Let's bring in Ernie from UKIP. I mean, Brexit is going to happen, isn't it? So it's job done. You can stand down, can't you?
Mrs May, Remainer. Her Chancellor Remainer, most of her front bench Remainer, her Parliamentary Brexit Committee Remainer, the chap who wrote the manifesto, abject Remainer. No, it isn't done. I actually agree with Gideon. You need strong members of Parliament up there, because I don't believe we are going to get the Brexit that people thought they would get. We've seen backsliding already. European Court of Human Rights will remain in force till 2022.
There was only one question on the referendum ballot paper. And it was
sorry, was I talking while you were interrupting?
There was only one question, and so when you say that you don't know what people were voting for, there weren't. There was one, and it was, do you want to remain in the European Union, yes or no? So when you say that you know why people voted to leave, how do you know that?
If you go on YouTube, Thangham, you will see David Cameron and George Osborne crystal clear saying you are voting to leave the single market. Go on YouTube, Thangham.
I want to talk about public spending. Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party are offering, I think, 4 bank holidays extra, more police, free university tuition and all the rest of it. Are you confident that the sums add up? And as a country, we can afford all that?
I've been through the costings document that's been prepared by the Labour Party, and I know that we know exactly how much it's going to cost to have those extra police officers and exactly where we're going to get the money from. I've seen the costings document. I think it's a good document. The IFS have made a few criticisms, which I think we're well aware of and we'd need to adjust for.
They say you're making huge assumptions about where the money would come from.
What they also did, the IFS said that the Conservative Party manifesto was barely costed at all, and I think that's the real question here.
Would you
the
support
party that thinks they can be in
public
government.
spending plans?
We don't go as far as their public spending, and as the Institute of Fiscal Studies have said, they don't feel the sums add up for either Labour or the Conservatives. Our only change to income tax for spending is 1 penny on the rate of income tax for the National Health Service, for everybody, which people understand. They can see that ring-fence money going to the National Health Service. We have to have manifestos which add up, and the Lib Dems does.
Simon?
Sorry, what?
Does your manifesto
add up? Because the IFS thinks it doesn't.
Of course it does. I think what the IFS has said is that if you look at the Labour Party manifesto, and what we're trying to do now is to encourage business to grow, to employ people, to pay and to invest. And if you were to deliver
why was the manifesto
if
costed?
you were to deliver the Labour policies, as set out in their manifesto, where rail nationalisation is not costed, renationalisation of
That's 'cause
power
all we'd be doing is taking the franchises back when they ran
renationalisation
out.
of power
Right.
is not costed. We would have the highest tax burden for 70 years. That's not a way of encouraging business and entrepreneurs.
UKIP's manifesto is 98% the same as it was in 2015.
Okay.
All of yours have changed. Do you want politicians with foresight or hindsight?
Okay. That's all from us this week. My thanks to all my guests. I'm sorry that the time is so short. Back now to Joe, who's in London. Bye-bye.